Thanks for checking out this series of videos on major scale modes. This set of videos covers the most common fingerings for modes using position playing for the guitar. The assumptions for you are that you have a general idea of what the modes are and what they do for you. This will be more of an applied approach to plugging in the modes to the guitar. And we're going to look at the fingerings in cross sections of the guitar neck within 6 fret ranges. But before we get into it, we'll do just a quick review of what the scale modes are. So we can see the modes of the major scale by simply starting the scale on a different degree other than the root. I'll start out by just playing a simple major scale. That is known as Ionian, or the major scale. If I start on the second degree, I get Dorian. Third degree gets Phrygian. Fourth degree is Lydian. Fifth degree is Mixolydian. Sixth degree is Aeolian. Seventh degree is Locrian. So this is a good way of understanding how the modes were built or constructed. But it doesn't really give us much context if we want to use them and if we want to differentiate between them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a single note, C, and we're going to play all the modes over that note. So we're going to build a bunch of C Mixolydian, a bunch of C Aeolian, etc. We start with the most familiar, Ionian, or the major scale. And then we incrementally alter one note or scale degree to introduce each mode. So I have here Ionian in C. Here's Mixolydian in C with just a flatted 7th. And then if I flat the 3rd, I get Dorian. And then if I flat the 6th, I get Aeolian. And then if I flat the 2nd, I get Phrygian. And then if I flat the 5th, I get Locrian. If I go back to the major scale and I just raise the 4th, I get Lydian. These videos are designed to build upon each other, so we'll learn the major scale or Ionian in 7 spots. And then we'll take the 7th degree of each of those fingerings and flat it to get Mixolydian. And then we will flat the 3rd degree of those Mixolydian scales to get Dorian, etc. So each time we'll just be changing one note and taking advantage of all of the other notes that are staying the same. I mentioned earlier that we're going to use position playing for the guitar. And what that means is we're restricting where our fingers go. We're going to dedicate a finger for each fret. So if I'm in 5th position, my first finger would be on the 5th fret, and then each finger would get their own fret. And that means that all the notes that follow within those frets would belong to that finger and would be played by that finger. There is a little caveat. The outside fingers are allowed to stretch. So instead of having 4 frets of range, we actually have 6 frets of range. These stretched finger positions are really used to help transition across the strings. There's times when there's 2 notes, say over here, that could be played by the first finger, but that would be a little strange because we would hear the difference between the other notes and this section where we're playing 2 notes with 1 finger. So in order to make that a little smoother, we bring in a stretched pinky to play this note. Here's a demonstration. If I'm playing my C scale, I could actually play it like that and still be in position, because I had played my tonic with my first finger, and then I had a first finger stretch to play the 7th degree. But it sounds a little awkward because I have to pick up that finger and move it to get to the next note. So if that B had its own finger, it would be a little smoother. And so that's where I bring in my stretched pinky. And that works on the other side as well, where the first finger would pick up for 2 notes that the pinky had to play. A general guideline here is that when you play more than one note with one finger, you're going to get a slur, or at the very least you're going to get a different sound in the articulation. So that can be a very cool effect and can be very musical, but you want to have control over that, so you want to be able to make those decisions based on the musical phrase rather than the fingering that you happen to be using. So having the capability of having another finger step in or substitute in is helpful. In the notation you'll notice some Roman numerals. Those will indicate the position that you should be playing in. For instance, if you see a 2, Roman numeral 2, that means you're playing in 2nd position and your first finger is on the 2nd fret, and then each finger that follows gets its own fret. 5th position, or Roman numeral 5, would be right here. Once again, all of the notes within that particular scale fall within that position. If you are in position 5 and you see a fret 4, that means that your first finger is stretching. Or if you see a fret 9, that means your pinky is stretching in the 5th position. So why all this structure and restrictions? Well, position playing brings order to what can be chaos. It's very easy to fall into random fingerings when you're working on scales, and that doesn't help with muscle memory. In fact, it kind of works against developing muscle memory. So position playing gives you some strict guidelines to follow so that you get to that muscle memory a lot sooner and a lot more efficiently. Another situation is you might use your stronger fingers more predominantly than your weaker ones. As you can imagine, that over the long run isn't great, because ultimately we want to strengthen the weaker fingers so that your hand is more balanced and you can actually utilize all 4 fingers rather than the 2 that are strong. In the big picture, position playing is really just one piece of the puzzle. I think it's sort of a building block because it maps out the guitar neck in sections so that you really understand what the fingering is doing in that particular area. You can see the scale evolve. It also helps you understand what the intervals are, which is always a challenge for the guitar. I've personally been using these fingerings for over 20 years. Although I don't always play them in their basic form, a lot of times I link them together. I still find that these basic fingerings provide a great foundation for learning scales and for understanding the differences between the modes. Thanks for checking them out, and I hope they're very helpful for you.